I'm one of those, this isn't a tall podium, which is a good thing because I don't like to cover my heart when I speak. But first of all, I want to start out by clarifying something that I said yesterday when we were talking about the financial panel and I mentioned my status of fourth from the bottom. That's not because I'm an unintelligent person. It's because school and I did not get along at all because nobody ever bothered to find my unique brilliance. So, you know, 25 years later, I think I'm doing okay. Somebody found it. I'm a natural-born talker, as you will see. And unfortunately, I married a natural-born talker as well. My husband and I met in high school. And he is an engineer by trade and by character. And he, as I mentioned, was the... Woohoo! Go Geeks! I don't get it. But we both have very strong opinions, and we have very loud voices. And in the beginning of our relationship, those strong opinions and loud voices would get us into a lot of trouble. We would argue about everything. It didn't matter. It could be an article in the newspaper. It could be the color of the sky. But our families were very similar. So I like to call his family the kamikaze game family because they would sooner go down in flames than lose. And they would tell you every rule that you broke, even if they had to make it up themselves. And so we got into a lot of very loud arguments, a lot of very big discussions early on in our relationship. But we weren't hurting anybody. It was just us. And then we grew, and we had our first son. And we didn't realize, because that little person couldn't talk, that we were training him how to communicate. So when we had our second son, and my first son started to communicate with my second son, it wasn't the brotherly love that we had hoped for. There was a lot of picking and poking and telling him to be quiet and telling him that he couldn't have this or that or the other thing. And then one day, when my son was about 3 years old, my husband and I were having one of our really gracious conversations in the kitchen. And Friday, when he would come home from work, it would be all right. You know, we would talk to each other and everything would be copacetic. By Sunday morning, the volume in our house was so explosively loud, he would pick up a newspaper and start reading an article, and I would immediately dive into why his opinion about that article was completely wrong. And by the end of the conversation, I was usually reduced to tears. So this one Sunday morning, we were talking, and we started getting very loud. And we could hear the TV in the other room getting louder, and the dogs were getting louder, and the kids were getting louder. And Max walked up, and he goes, "Daddy, are you going to make Mommy cry again today?" And we went, wow, we got to change. That's not cool. So we decided that the problem was me. So I went to classes to be a better communicator. I went to Dream Coach University, and I learned how to fix me first before I tried to fix other people, which was a beautiful thing. But I fell in love with these seminars, so I started attending a lot of them, and I decided that this was something that I wanted to teach to other people. So in the course of one of these seminars that I went to, we kind of had a unique opportunity to get on the floor and have an intimate conversation with the lead. And this was one of those things where, you know, it wasn't somebody standing up and talking to you. She actually said, "You know what, screw this, let's sit down, and get down here, and we're all gonna sit down here, and we're just gonna talk." And she started talking about a seminar that she had attended about women being better wives or spouses to their men by putting away their sword of dominance and allowing their men to be men. And I hated that concept. It was awful, because I was like, you know what? He doesn't shut up now. Could you imagine if I put away my sword of dominance, how I would never get a word in edgewise? And one of the things that they talked about was when you're in a conversation with a man, don't say anything and count to 30 in your head after they've said their last word before you begin to speak. Sorry. which I thought was ridiculous because he doesn't shut up. But I thought, you know what? Every conversation we have on the phone at night, I ask to talk to the boys, and we have these great little conversations. And then Chris gets on the phone, and he starts telling me about what I did wrong. I paid, do you know that you still have a water bill sitting in the, what am I gonna do? I'm 2,000 miles away. I can't pay the water bill right now. Do you really wanna have this fight with me? Yes, yes I do. And I'll tell you what else you do wrong. And that's how the conversations would go. And again, I would get off the phone in tears. So clearly it wasn't me. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this 30-second thing. So Chris started talking, and I just got quiet. And I would count to 30 in my head. And he would keep talking. And then just when I thought I was so close, he would start to say something again, and I would let him talk. And the weirdest thing happened. His tone lightened. He started saying things like, I wish, and I don't understand, and could you please? And then he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm listening to you. And he went, really? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay. Really? So when we got off the phone, for the first time in years, we hadn't fought, and we actually said, I love you, and I can't wait to see you. It gets better. So I go home, and I walk through the door, and normally my kids are like really excited to see me, and my husband doesn't want to talk to me, but for some reason, my kids were really mad at me, and my husband wanted to talk my ear off, clearly because I was listening to him now. So I decided my youngest son, who has Asperger's syndrome, I really wanted to explore why he was so angry with me, because he had stormed up the stairs. So I went up after him, and I walked in his room, and immediately he started blowing up at me. You're the worst mom ever. I can't believe you leave me like this. What's wrong with you? I can't stand you. And those were the kind of things that the old me would have been like, are you kidding me? I've just been gone for a week, and this is how you're gonna talk to me? I am your mother. But the new enlightened me went, 30 seconds. So I sat down on the floor, and I just listened to him. And in the middle of his rant, he's throwing stuff around, and he looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? And I went, I'm listening to you. And he went, okay. And then he started doing some other stuff, and then he started yelling again, and he goes, why are you listening to me? And I said, well, why wouldn't I listen to you? And then he said, because no one ever listens to me. Ouch. And that's when I realized that the youngest member of my family was the loudest member of my family because he felt that no one ever listened to him. Ah, that hurts still. You know, they tell you don't tell the story when you're still bleeding from it. So, but what we decided in that moment was that we were going to start a new rule. We weren't going to count to 30 because that was crazy. That was too long. Nobody can do that. But we were going to count to 3 in our heads after the last person said their last word before we begin to speak. And we started that process kind of like a talking stick. And we went downstairs and we announced it to the rest of the family. And the thing that was beautiful about it was we all agreed to it. And from that point forward, we started to really listen to each other. We started to listen to each other's opinions and thoughts, and we started giving them relevance and value. And the volume in our house went down, and the brilliance in our house went up. Yay. So, if there's one thing that I could share with every parent on the world, it would be, if somebody's really, really being loud and yelling and fighting and screaming for your attention, maybe just get quiet and listen. Thank you.